Each night, when your eyes close and the waking world fades away, you enter a realm where ordinary logic dissolves. There, images emerge that feel both familiar and strange. A vast ocean stretching endlessly beneath a starless sky, a serpent gliding silently through shadows, or a forgotten house where every room seems alive with whispers. You may awaken unsettled, wondering what these visions mean. To Carl Jung, such scenes were not random leftovers of thought. They were the secret language of the unconscious, messages spoken in symbols, guiding the soul toward its deepest truth. Unlike the daylight mind, which speaks in concepts and sentences, the unconscious prefers images, archetypes, and stories. Dreams, Jung believed, are bridges, delicate yet powerful connections between the conscious self that navigates daily life and the timeless depths of the psyche that hold humanity's oldest patterns. To enter a dream is to step across a threshold into a private temple of the spirit, where hidden truths reveal themselves in metaphors. Freud, Jung's early mentor, argued that dreams were primarily the disguised expressions of repressed sexual desires. To Freud, the serpent was phallic, the house a symbol of the female body, and nearly every dream a coded message of unfulfilled urges. Jung admired Freud's brilliance, but felt constrained by this narrow view. For him, dreams were not only about the past and what had been suppressed. They were about the future, carrying hints of what the soul longs to become. They were not chains binding us to hidden desires, but maps pointing to transformation. Consider a dream of standing before an immense ocean. To Freud, the waves might be unbridled energy or suppressed longing. To Jung, the ocean symbolized something far greater, the collective unconscious, the shared reservoir of human myth and memory. To stand before it was to confront your place within humanity's endless story. Or take the serpent. In Freud's system, a symbol of sexual energy. In Jung's, a universal sign of transformation, death, and renewal, echoing myths of dragons, healers, and gods. Dreams, for Jung, were never trivial. They were invitations to dialogue with the deepest forces within. Jung did not speak of dreams as curiosities. He lived with them, wrote them down, and let them shape his path. He would awaken at dawn, take a pen, and capture each flicker of vision before it evaporated. Over time, he noticed patterns. A recurring house with endless rooms symbolized the self and its hidden chambers. A dark figure appearing in dreams was the shadow, the rejected part of the psyche demanding recognition. Through patient attention, Jung discovered that the unconscious repeats what is essential until it is finally heard. Now, imagine your own nights. How many times have you brushed off a dream as meaningless? How many times have you woken with the residue of a powerful image, a voice, a place, a symbol, but let it slip away? Jung would urge you not to dismiss these moments. He would say, "Here is your soul speaking." The unconscious does not use direct speech. It speaks in images that feel ancient, because they are. They are the same archetypes that guided prophets, inspired myths, and shaped the stories of every culture. There is a certain reverence in Jung's approach, a sense that each dream is a sacred text written in a language the waking mind struggles to decipher. He taught that we must listen with patience, without rushing to impose meaning, allowing the dream to speak in its own rhythm. To analyze a dream too quickly is like interrupting a story halfway through. To sit with a dream, however, is to let its symbols breathe, expand, and reveal layers of truth that the conscious mind alone cannot reach. This is why Jung believed that the journey into dreams is the journey into wholeness. For the unconscious does not only show us what we already know, It reveals what we need to know but cannot yet face. Dreams shine a light into hidden wounds, neglected desires, and undiscovered strengths. They challenge the ego's illusion of control, reminding us that beneath our daily plans flows a river of life that is older, wiser, and far more mysterious. When you hear this, pause for a moment. Think of your last dream. Perhaps it was strange, fragmented, or even frightening. What if it was not nonsense but a coded message, urging you toward growth? What if the frightening figure was a shadow of yourself asking to be acknowledged? Or the house you explored was a map of your own psyche, each room waiting to be opened? Jung would invite you to ask, what is this image trying to tell me about who I am becoming? This is the essence of Jung's radical view. Dreams are not random. They are the secret language of the soul, written in symbols that transcend time and culture. They connect the small self to the vast whole. They reveal that beneath the surface of ordinary life lies a vast ocean of meaning, waiting for us to dive in. And so, as we begin this journey through Jung's vision of dreams, hold this thought. You are not merely a dreamer. You are being dreamed by something greater than yourself. Each night, the unconscious writes to you in metaphors, asking if you will read, listen, and learn. If you accept the invitation, you may discover that the key to your healing, your growth, and your transformation has been waiting in your dreams all along. This opening prepares the way for deeper exploration. Next, we will step into Jung's dramatic break with Freud, the moment when their paths diverged, and Jung's vision of dreams began to unfold in its full symbolic power. The story of Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud is one of the most fascinating turning points in the history of psychology. In the beginning, Jung admired Freud greatly. He saw in Freud a bold pioneer, someone unafraid to explore the hidden depths of human desire. Their conversations stretched late into the night, a shared excitement about the unconscious binding them together like father and son. Yet beneath this partnership, differences began to surface. Differences that would grow until they shattered the bond between them. For Freud, dreams were the royal road to the unconscious. But that road led to one destination: repressed desire, most often sexual in nature. Every dream symbol, he argued, could be translated into a disguised wish. A tower was a phallic image, a house represented the female body, and nearly every landscape became a coded map of sexuality. His theory was sharp, elegant, and often shocking to the polite society of his time. But Jung felt that Freud's vision, though powerful, was too narrow. To Jung, reducing the vast mystery of dreams to mere sexual desire was like reducing the night sky to a single star. Yes, desire played a role in dreams, but it was only one piece of a much larger picture. Jung began to sense that dreams contained not only what was suppressed, but also what was emerging, the possibilities of the future, the call of transformation. He believed the unconscious was not simply a storehouse of forbidden urges, but a living, creative force that sought to balance and guide the conscious mind. Their disagreement reached a breaking point. In 1912, Jung published Symbols of Transformation, a book that broke away from Freud's theories. He wrote about myth, archetypes, and the symbolic life of the psyche, expanding the meaning of dreams beyond repression to include spiritual growth and universal patterns. Freud saw this as heresy, a betrayal of the foundation he had built. The rift between them widened, and the friendship collapsed. For Jung, however, this was the beginning of his true journey into the mysteries of the unconscious. Imagine two massive stone statues standing face to face. One is Freud, carved with precision, his features etched with the certainty of a man who believed he had uncovered the key to the human soul. The other is Jung, equally monumental, but with cracks revealing light shining through, symbols breaking free from the stone. They stand as guardians of two different paths into the dream world. Freud's path is narrow, guided by the logic of repression. Jung's path is vast, branching into myth, symbol, and spiritual insight. What does this difference mean for us as dreamers? Under Freud's gaze, a dream of a house might be reduced to bodily imagery. Under Jung's gaze, that same house could be the psyche itself, each floor representing a different layer of the self. A dream of a serpent, once only a phallic symbol, becomes instead a timeless image of death and renewal, echoing across religions and mythologies. Jung's approach opened a door for us to see dreams as living art, crafted by the unconscious to teach us something essential about our journey. Jung once said that Freud's perspective felt like standing in a cellar with only one candle. Everything became shadows of the same object. In contrast, Jung's own exploration was like opening a stained glass window, where the light of the unconscious refracted into countless colors and images. Dreams were not to be stripped down to hidden urges, but honored as symbolic expressions of the psyche's depth and creativity. This is why Jung's break with Freud was so necessary. Without it, his ideas of archetypes, the collective unconscious, and the transformative power of dreams could never have come alive. In breaking with his mentor, Jung was forced to walk alone, to face his own dreams without the safety of Freud's framework. It was a painful separation, but it opened the way for the birth of a new psychology, one that sees the unconscious not as an enemy, but as an ally, a guide, and a source of wisdom. If you reflect on your own dreams, you may notice this difference. Think of a dream you had recently. If Freud stood beside you, he might explain it as a coded wish, a disguised fulfillment of desire. But if Jung were there, he would lean closer and ask, "What symbol has appeared to you? What myth is your soul repeating? What future possibility is the dream pointing toward?" One view limits the dream to what you already know. The other opens it to what you have not yet discovered. Jung's courage to step away from Freud mirrors the very process of individuation he later described. Individuation is the journey of becoming oneself, even when it means leaving behind the security of another's authority. Just as Jung had to face the break with Freud, each of us must at some point face the authority of voices that once guided us and choose instead to follow the inner call of our own soul. Thus, the story of Jung and Freud is more than a tale of two men. It is an archetype itself, the disciple who must leave the master to find his own truth. Dreams remind us of this every night. They urge us to leave the safety of the familiar and step into the unknown. For Jung, that unknown was the symbolic world of the unconscious, a world Freud had touched but could not fully embrace. And so, the rift between Freud and Jung was not just personal. It was the necessary opening of a door, one that allowed dreams to be seen as more than repressed urges. Jung's path led to a new horizon, where dreams became guides toward wholeness, healing, and spiritual awakening. This divergence sets the stage for the next step in Jung's journey. His practice of writing down every dream, capturing each fleeting image before it vanished. From those journals, he would begin to map the language of the unconscious, discovering patterns and archetypes that revealed the inner architecture of the soul. Every morning, as the first light of dawn broke through the curtains, Carl Jung would reach for his pen. Before the rush of thought or the weight of the day could intrude, he would sit quietly and capture the fragments that floated up from the night. A shadow in a hallway, a house with endless rooms, a serpent coiling in silence, a flood of water. He wrote it all down with careful attention. For Jung, dream journaling was not a pastime. It was a spiritual discipline, a way of giving form to the whispers of the unconscious before they slipped away into oblivion. Dreams are like fragile dew upon grass, glittering for a moment, then gone. If you do not gather them at dawn, they vanish, leaving only a vague impression. Jung understood this impermanence, and he treated each dream as sacred text. His notebooks became treasure chests of symbols, a living archive of the soul's dialogue with itself. Over time, the pages revealed patterns. Certain images returned again and again, as if the unconscious insisted, "Pay attention. This matters." You might ask yourself, how often have you awakened from a dream only to lose it within minutes? Perhaps you remembered a strange scene, but by breakfast it dissolved, leaving behind only a trace of unease or curiosity. Jung's method was simple: honor the dream by writing it down. In doing so, you anchor the fleeting into permanence. You make space for the unconscious to speak and, more importantly, to be heard. In his journals, Jung discovered recurring houses. Sometimes they were grand, with many floors and hidden cellars. Sometimes they were modest cottages. Always, they represented the psyche itself. Each level a layer of the self. Each locked room a mystery waiting to be entered. He noticed animals, too. The snake shedding its skin, a bird circling overhead, a lion appearing at the threshold of consciousness. Each was not merely an image, but an archetype, alive with meaning. The discipline of dream journaling allowed Jung to trace the evolution of his own psyche. He could look back and see how certain symbols had guided him through crises, offered warnings, or prepared him for transformations yet to come. The unconscious was not random. It was a storyteller, weaving continuity across nights, offering clues about the direction of life itself. Now, imagine yourself waking from a dream. The details are slippery, like sand falling through your fingers. But if you immediately write down even fragments, colors, emotions, single objects, you begin to build a bridge between the waking self and the dreaming self. Over weeks and months, a picture emerges. You may notice the same place reappearing, or a figure returning in different forms. The unconscious speaks in repetition, ensuring that what is most important will not be missed. Jung often encouraged his patients to keep their own dream journals. For those willing to commit, the practice became transformative. People who once dismissed their dreams as nonsense began to see a hidden order. They recognized their shadows, their longings, their fears, and their possibilities. Dreams became companions on the path of individuation. Journals became maps of the soul's terrain. The power of this practice lies not in instant interpretation, but in patience. Jung taught that we should not rush to decode every image. Instead, we should live with the dream, letting it breathe. Over time, its meaning emerges naturally, often in surprising ways. A dream written down years ago may suddenly make sense in a new season of life. The unconscious does not operate on the clock of the ego. It moves in its own rhythm, teaching us to wait and to trust. There is also something profoundly humbling about dream journaling. When you write down your dreams, you realize how much of your life happens beyond your conscious control. The ego, which believes it rules the mind, must bow to the deeper layers that reveal themselves at night. This humility is not weakness, but wisdom. To admit that your soul speaks a language you must learn is the beginning of true dialogue with the self. Think of the practice as keeping correspondence with your inner guide. Each morning, the unconscious delivers a letter. Sometimes it is clear, sometimes cryptic, sometimes frightening. But if you never open the letters, you cannot know what guidance waits inside. The journal becomes the mailbox, the place where the soul's communications are received and preserved. Jung's own journals were not mere collections of notes. They became the seeds of his greatest works. From them grew the insights into archetypes, the collective unconscious, and the symbolic life of the psyche. Without his daily devotion to writing, those ideas might never have emerged. His journals were his laboratory, his cathedral, and his mirror. As you hear this, perhaps you feel the stir of possibility. Imagine placing a notebook beside your bed tonight. Imagine waking tomorrow and writing down whatever fragments you remember. A color, a word, a face. Over time, these fragments may weave into a tapestry. You may discover that your unconscious has been speaking to you all along, patiently waiting for you to listen. This is the invitation Jung extends through the art of dream journaling, to become the scribe of your own soul. Each entry is a step closer to wholeness, each symbol a clue in the great puzzle of the self. By honoring your dreams with ink and paper, you honor the depths within you, acknowledging that the unconscious is not an enemy but a companion, a wise and ancient voice that longs to be heard. And so, as Jung's journals grew, so did his understanding of transformation. He began to see how certain recurring symbols, the serpent, the ocean, the house, the animal, were not just personal, but universal. They pointed toward archetypes of death, rebirth, and growth, revealing the psyche's constant movement toward renewal. It is to these symbols of transformation that we now turn. Among the pages of Jung's journals, certain images emerged again and again. Images so charged with power that they could not be dismissed as random. These were what Jung called symbols of transformation, the archetypal forms that revealed the psyche's deepest processes of death, renewal, and integration. If dreams were the secret language of the unconscious, then these symbols were its most eloquent words. The serpent was one of the most prominent. Across cultures, serpents embody both fear and wisdom. In ancient myths, they were guardians of treasure, destroyers of worlds, or healers carrying medicine in their coils. In Jung's own dreams, snakes often appeared at moments of inner crisis, shedding their skin to reveal the timeless truth of rebirth. To dream of a serpent was to confront transformation itself, the dying of an old self and the birth of something new. Jung did not see such images as sinister, but as invitations to change, even when the process was painful. Then there was the ocean. Its dark waves appeared not only in Jung's nights, but in the dreams of countless patients. The ocean symbolized the collective unconscious, vast, unfathomable, and eternal. To dream of the sea was to stand before forces greater than the individual self, to feel the weight of humanity's shared history and myth. Sometimes the ocean brought fear, threatening to overwhelm. Other times it brought awe, a reminder of the soul's connection to something larger than ego. The image of the house also carried profound meaning. Jung often dreamed of houses with many rooms, some familiar, some strange, and some hidden below ground. These houses, he realized, represented the psyche itself. The main floor was the conscious mind, the upper stories are aspirations, and the basement the unconscious depths. To wander such a house in a dream was to explore the architecture of the soul, discovering chambers that had long been locked. Each new room symbolized a forgotten part of the self waiting to be acknowledged. Animals, too, populated Jung's dreams. Each carried its own symbolic weight. The lion roared with power and sovereignty, demanding respect for primal strength. The bird, soaring above, brought visions of freedom and transcendence. Even humble creatures, like mice or insects, revealed hidden fears, neglected duties, or the persistence of life's smallest details. For Jung, no animal was meaningless. Each bore the stamp of an archetype, a living emblem of human instinct. These symbols, Jung insisted, were not inventions of the individual. They were part of the great inheritance of humanity, echoes of myths and stories told for millennia. The serpent of Eden, the cosmic ocean in creation myths, the sacred houses in fairy tales, all were reflections of the same unconscious images rising in different times and cultures. Dreams, then, were not only personal but universal. They linked the dreamer to the ancient river of human imagination. Consider how these symbols might appear in your own dreams. Perhaps you've dreamed of water flooding a street, of climbing stairs in a strange house, of encountering a wild animal, or of being watched by a serpent's eyes. What if these were not random but archetypal messages? The flood could signal emotional overwhelm, yes, but also a cleansing, a washing away of the old. The hidden room in a house could represent an undiscovered aspect of yourself. The animal might embody a strength you have yet to claim. Jung would urge you to ask, what is this symbol transforming in me? Transformation was central to Jung's vision of the psyche. He believed that the unconscious continually seeks to heal and balance the self. Dreams reveal this process symbolically. The serpent sheds skin because we must shed old identities. The ocean surges because we must confront the depths. The house reveals rooms because we must embrace forgotten parts of ourselves. Each symbol is a reminder that life itself is a series of deaths and rebirths, endings and beginnings, all leading us closer to wholeness. Jung described this journey as individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. Transformation is never easy. It asks us to confront fear, to let go of what is familiar, to surrender to what is greater than ego. But through symbols, the unconscious shows us that this path is natural, woven into the very fabric of life. To dream of a serpent, an ocean, a house, or an animal is to be given a map of change, urging us to step forward into growth. Think again of your last powerful dream. Did you dismiss it as nonsense? Or did you sense something deeper calling to you? Perhaps you walked away unsettled by its strangeness. But what if that strangeness was the very point? The unconscious speaking in a language beyond words, urging you to embrace change. Jung would say, do not ignore it. Write it down. Reflect upon it. Let the symbol guide you into the next stage of your journey. This is the essence of Jung's teaching. Symbols are alive. They are not dead relics of myth, but living forces in the psyche, shaping our growth whether we notice them or not. To attend to them is to collaborate with the unconscious, to allow transformation to happen with awareness rather than resistance. As Jung traced these symbols in his own journals and in the dreams of his patients, he realized that not all dreams are equal. Some carry everyday fragments, traces of routine, worries, or fleeting desires. Others, however, are larger, more luminous, carrying the weight of prophecy or spiritual guidance. He called these big dreams, the ones that leave us shaken, inspired, or forever changed. It is to this distinction between ordinary dreams and big dreams that we now turn. Jung often said that not all dreams speak with the same voice. Some whisper softly, echoing the day's events or replaying worries in fragmented form. Others thunder, leaving us shaken long after waking, their imagery carved into memory with startling clarity. He drew a line between what he called the little dreams of daily life and the big dreams that arrive rarely but carry immense weight. Like letters sealed with the stamp of destiny, little dreams are familiar to everyone. They are the ones where we see ourselves at work, or relive an argument, or wander through a distorted version of our home. They are influenced by daily stress, fleeting desires, or the digestion of memory. Often they feel chaotic, a jumble of fragments without clear meaning. Yet even these smaller dreams can hold value. They reflect the psyche's attempt to balance the pressures of the day, to regulate emotions, or to release tensions that the conscious mind cannot fully process. In this way, little dreams are like the body's nightly housekeeping, quietly maintaining psychological health. But then there are the big dreams. These are different in tone, scale, and impact. Big dreams have a numinous quality, a sense of sacredness that makes them unforgettable. They are the dreams in which we stand before a radiant light, encounter a wise guide, face a shadowy figure, or glimpse the future with terrifying precision. Jung considered such dreams to be rare gifts, messages not only from the personal unconscious, but from the collective unconscious itself. They reveal truths that transcend the individual, pointing to spiritual lessons, archetypal transformations, and even prophetic warnings. One of Jung's patients once described dreaming of a colossal tree whose branches stretched across the heavens, filled with birds singing in every tongue. To the dreamer, it felt more real than waking life. Its imagery burned into his memory for years. Jung explained that this was no ordinary dream, but a great dream, echoing the ancient image of the world tree that appears in countless myths, from Yggdrasil in Norse legend to the tree of life in many religions. This dream linked the patient's personal journey to humanity's timeless spiritual symbols, offering not just insight, but initiation. Big dreams are often accompanied by a deep emotional resonance. They may inspire awe, fear, or reverence. They may bring guidance at moments of crisis or decision. For Jung, such dreams were among the most significant events in a person's life. They could alter the direction of one's path, serve as calls to individuation, or reveal the presence of archetypal forces shaping destiny. Perhaps you have experienced such a dream yourself, a dream that refuses to fade, that haunts you years later, that feels more vivid than anything in waking life. Maybe it was a dream of light or of death, of a great journey or a meeting with a mysterious figure. If so, Jung would urge you to treat it as sacred. He would say, here, the unconscious is not merely sorting out the past. Here, it is pointing you toward the future, offering a compass for the soul. The distinction between little and big dreams is not meant to diminish the smaller ones, but to help us recognize the extraordinary when it arrives. Most nights we receive fragments, like pebbles scattered along the shore. But sometimes, rarely, the sea delivers a jewel. To recognize that jewel is to acknowledge that the unconscious has spoken with unusual force and clarity. Jung's own life was shaped by big dreams. In his midlife crisis, he was seized by visions so intense they felt prophetic. He dreamed of floods engulfing Europe, of rivers of blood, of destruction sweeping across the land. Only later, when the First World War erupted, did he recognize their significance. These were not personal anxieties, but collective visions, warnings from the unconscious about the catastrophe to come. Jung understood then that big dreams are not only about the individual, but can reflect the fate of entire societies. It is easy to dismiss a small dream, but to ignore a big dream is to risk turning away from the very guidance that the soul most urgently offers. Jung advised that when such dreams occur, we must write them down, meditate upon them, and return to them again and again. They are too important to be forgotten. They are milestones in the journey of individuation, markers of the soul's path through darkness and light. Reflect for a moment. Have you ever had a dream that felt larger than life? A dream you could never forget? Perhaps it frightened you, or perhaps it filled you with awe. Perhaps it felt like standing at a crossroads, with two doors before you, one dim and narrow, the other vast and glowing, leading into the unknown. Jung would say, that is the choice between living only in the surface self and stepping into the transformative path of individuation. Big dreams open the larger door, and so, the distinction between personal and big dreams is not academic. It is lived experience. It is the difference between the everyday maintenance of the psyche and the moments when the unconscious seizes us, shakes us, and reveals a truth that changes everything. Having seen this, Jung turned to study the archetypal figures that so often appear in great dreams: the shadow, the anima, the wise old man, universal presences that guide, challenge, and shape the dreamer's journey. These archetypes are the characters through which the unconscious speaks, and they are where we now turn. When Jung examined the dreams recorded in his journals and those of his patients, he noticed that certain figures appeared with uncanny regularity. These were not simply memories of people from daily life. They were larger, stranger, and more powerful. They carried an intensity that ordinary characters could not. Jung called them archetypes, universal figures rising from the collective unconscious, embodying timeless roles that have shaped human imagination for millennia. Among the most significant archetypes to appear in dreams is the shadow. The shadow is the part of ourselves we would rather not see. The anger, jealousy, greed, fear, or selfishness that we deny in waking life. In dreams, the shadow often appears as a dark figure, faceless or terrifying, chasing us through corridors or standing silently at the edge of vision. It is unsettling, sometimes nightmarish, but Jung insisted that meeting the shadow is essential. For the shadow holds not only what we reject, but also hidden energy, creativity, and vitality. To face it is to reclaim the fullness of the self. Next comes the anima, the feminine image within the male psyche, and conversely, the animus in the female psyche. The anima appears in dreams as a mysterious woman, sometimes a guide, sometimes a seductress, sometimes a nurturing presence. She represents emotion, intuition, and the bridge to the unconscious. For Jung, encountering the anima in dreams was a crucial step toward balance, for she draws the rational, conscious mind into dialogue with feeling and imagination. To ignore her is to risk being cut off from the depths of the psyche. To embrace her is to move toward integration. Then there is the wise old man, the sage archetype who arrives with counsel when the dreamer is lost. He may appear as a bearded figure, a teacher, a healer, or even a humble wanderer offering cryptic advice. His presence is numinous, radiating authority not of the ego, but of timeless wisdom. In dreams, the wise old man embodies the guiding principle of the unconscious, pointing the dreamer toward meaning, healing, and transformation. To meet him is to feel that one has touched something eternal. Jung observed that these archetypes are not inventions of the individual mind. They appear across cultures and centuries, from ancient myths to modern dreams. The shadow is found in demons and tricksters. The anima shines through goddesses and muses. The wise old man echoes in shamans, prophets, and elders. Dreams, Jung realized, are not isolated. They connect us to humanity's deepest symbolic heritage, placing each dreamer within the great story of mankind. Consider what it means when such figures appear in your own dreams. Have you ever dreamed of a frightening stranger chasing you? That may be your shadow, demanding acknowledgement. Have you encountered a mysterious figure who inspires love, fear, or reverence? That may be your anima or animus, inviting you into greater wholeness. Have you spoken with an old man or woman who seemed wiser than anyone you know in waking life? That may be the archetypal guide, pointing you toward a truth you had not yet grasped. Jung believed that these archetypal encounters were milestones in the process of individuation. The dreamer who faces the shadow becomes more honest and whole. The dreamer who listens to the anima or animus bridges the gap between reason and feeling. The dreamer who heeds the wise old man gains guidance beyond the limits of ego. Through such encounters, the psyche leads itself toward balance, integration, and transformation. Yet these figures are not always easy to meet. The shadow can terrify, leaving the dreamer shaken. The anima can overwhelm, flooding the conscious mind with emotion. The wise old man can challenge, demanding humility and openness to truths the ego resists. Jung insisted that we must approach these figures with respect, patience, and a willingness to learn. They are not illusions but realities of the psyche, carrying lessons that, if ignored, will return again and again until understood. The archetypes also reveal something profound about the unconscious. It is not chaotic, but structured. It has form, rhythm, and order. Dreams are not random fragments but symbolic dramas, staged with archetypal characters who play out the conflicts, desires, and possibilities of the soul. To study them is to study the language of the unconscious, a language that transcends words. Imagine keeping a dream journal, as Jung did, and noticing a figure who returns night after night. At first, it may seem like a coincidence, but over time you realize that this figure has a purpose. The shadow confronts you until you acknowledge your anger or fear. The anima invites you to feel what you have ignored. The wise old man points you toward choices you have resisted. Dreams, through these figures, become not only reflections of the psyche, but active participants in your growth. This is the mystery of archetypes. They are both ancient and alive. They are not dusty myths, but living presences within each of us. By meeting them in dreams, we meet parts of ourselves that have been waiting for recognition since the dawn of humanity. Jung's genius was to recognize that what we dream is not only personal, but collective, linking us to the myths, gods, and heroes of every culture. The archetypes are guides, but they also point to something larger, the existence of a collective unconscious, a vast reservoir of shared symbols and stories. Jung's exploration of this collective dimension reshaped psychology forever, showing that in our dreams we touch not only our personal history, but the soul of humanity itself. It is to this collective unconscious, revealed through dreams, that we now turn. When Jung spoke of the unconscious, he did not mean only the hidden memories and desires of an individual life. He went further, into depths that startled even his closest colleagues. Beneath the personal unconscious, he said, lies a far deeper layer, one that is not unique to you or me, but shared by all humanity. He called this the collective unconscious, a vast ocean of symbols, myths, and archetypes that bind us to every culture, every age, every soul that has ever lived. Dreams are the doorway into this collective realm. To dream of a serpent is not only to confront your own personal transformation, but to step into a symbol that has coiled through every mythology, from the serpent in Eden to the dragons of Asia, from the Ouroboros swallowing its tail to the healing staff of Asclepius. To dream of the ocean is not only to face your emotions, but to stand at the shore of humanity's timeless imagery, where the sea has always been the mother of creation, the abyss of death, and the source of life itself. Jung's patients often came to him describing dreams that bewildered them, filled with imagery they had never studied or known. Yet these dreams mirrored ancient myths, sacred stories, and archetypes from distant cultures. A woman might dream of giving birth to a radiant child, echoing the motif of the divine child found in countless traditions. A man might dream of climbing a world tree, unknowingly repeating the cosmic symbol of Yggdrasil or the Tree of Life. These parallels convinced Jung that the unconscious is not a private storehouse, but a collective inheritance, a memory older than any individual life. The collective unconscious, Jung believed, is like a vast underground river. Each of us is a spring flowing from it. Our dreams are not created in isolation. They are drawn from this shared reservoir, echoing the same archetypes that inspired prophets, poets, and storytellers for thousands of years. This is why certain dream symbols feel both intimate and universal. They belong to you, yet they belong to everyone. To experience such a dream is to glimpse the deep kinship of humanity. When you dream of walking into a temple filled with light, you touch the same archetype that guided ancient worshippers. When you dream of fighting a shadowy figure, you relive the hero's journey told in myths across cultures. Dreams remind us that we are part of a story far greater than ourselves, a story humanity has been telling since the dawn of time. This recognition can be both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it shows that we are not as original as we believe. Our inner life resonates with patterns older than civilization. Empowering because it means we are not alone. The struggles we face, the fears that haunt us, the hopes that lift us, all have been shared by countless others. The dreamer in you walks the same symbolic landscape as shamans, mystics, and visionaries from every corner of the world. Jung often illustrated this by pointing to recurring dream motifs. Floods, for example, appear across cultures as symbols of destruction and renewal, from Noah's Ark to the Epic of Gilgamesh. In dreams, floods often signal overwhelming emotion, but also the promise of cleansing and rebirth. Similarly, dreams of journeys into caves or labyrinths echo initiation rituals and myths of descent into the underworld, where heroes confront death and return transformed. These are not mere coincidences. They are archetypal stories resurfacing in the personal dreamscape. If you reflect on your own dreams, you may notice images that feel strangely ancient. Perhaps you dreamed of standing on a mountain, speaking to a luminous figure, or walking through a desert toward a hidden city. Even if you never studied mythology, these symbols carry weight because they live within you already. They are part of the psychic inheritance passed down through generations, encoded in what Jung called the collective unconscious. What does this mean for the individual? It means that dreams not only reveal personal conflicts, but also place those conflicts in a larger context. When you wrestle with a shadow in a dream, you are participating in the eternal struggle between light and darkness. When you embrace a child in a dream, you are touching the archetype of renewal and hope that has always been humanity's salvation. Your personal life becomes a thread woven into the universal tapestry. This perspective also offers profound healing. Many people feel isolated in their suffering, convinced that their struggles are unique. But dreams reveal that we are never alone. To dream archetypally is to discover that your fears and hopes are shared across time. You are accompanied by the wisdom of humanity, by symbols that have guided countless souls before you. This realization itself can bring comfort, belonging, and strength. Jung described dreams as bridges between the individual and the collective. Through them, the unconscious whispers not only your story, but humanity's story. To listen is to find yourself woven into a narrative much larger than ego. And once you sense this, you cannot help but live differently. You begin to see your life as part of a sacred drama, a myth unfolding, in which your choices matter not only for you, but for the whole. Thus, dreams are not only personal guidance, but also collective messages, carrying the wisdom of the ages. They remind us that we are children of myth, inheritors of symbols, participants in the eternal play of archetypes. And when we honor this, we begin to heal, not only as individuals, but as members of the human family. It was this recognition of the healing potential of dreams, both personal and collective, that led Jung to use dream work in therapy. By exploring the symbols, he helped patients confront their wounds, embrace their wholeness, and move toward integration. Dreams, he discovered, are not only mysterious stories but medicine for the soul. Jung's conviction that dreams could heal was not mere theory. He witnessed it again and again in the lives of his patients, and he experienced it in his own dark nights of the soul. For him, dreams were more than cryptic puzzles to decode. They were acts of inner medicine, a natural therapy arising from the psyche itself. To ignore a dream was to silence the physician within. To honor a dream was to allow the unconscious to participate in the work of healing. He described the unconscious as a self-regulating system. Just as the body seeks balance through symptoms and recovery, the psyche seeks equilibrium through dreams. If a person's conscious life becomes one-sided, too rational, too rigid, too consumed by ambition, dreams will rise to compensate, offering images of vulnerability, humility, or neglected feeling. Likewise, if one becomes overwhelmed by chaos or despair, dreams may present symbols of structure, guidance, or light. In this way, dreams act as counterweights, restoring balance to the inner world. One patient of Jung's, for example, suffered from overwhelming anxiety, paralyzed by indecision in her waking life. She dreamed of a glowing compass resting in her hands, pointing her toward a path through a dark forest. Jung did not interpret the compass as a mere object. He treated it as a gift of guidance from the unconscious. The dream reassured her that somewhere within, she already possessed orientation. By reflecting on the symbol and trusting its message, she found the courage to make choices in waking life. The dream itself had planted the seed of healing. Dreams can also bring to the surface wounds that have long been buried. Jung described the psyche as a house with many rooms, some locked and forgotten. Dreams sometimes force open those doors, bringing unresolved trauma into awareness. This can be painful, even frightening. Yet Jung insisted that the unconscious does not do this to punish, but to heal. Only by facing the wound can it begin to close. In this way, nightmares too can serve as medicine, shaking us awake to what must be addressed. Consider the image of light that so often appears in healing dreams. A person may dream of being surrounded by a golden aura, or of lying in darkness while beams of light descend upon them. Jung saw these images as manifestations of the self, the central archetype of wholeness, the deep core of the psyche that guides us toward integration. To dream of light is to encounter the healing presence of the self, offering reassurance and renewal even in moments of despair. Animals in dreams often play a healing role as well. A lion may appear, giving strength to someone who feels powerless. A bird may arrive, lifting a dreamer above despair. Even a serpent, often feared, can arrive as a healer, echoing its ancient role in medicine, wrapped around the staff of Asclepius. Jung urged his patients to respect these images, not as random, but as meaningful interventions from the unconscious, offering precisely what the psyche needs at that moment. In therapy, Jung often asked patients to dialogue with their dreams, to paint the symbols, or to imagine conversations with the figures that appeared. By engaging the dream actively, the healing could deepen. One patient who dreamed of a wise old man began painting him, and through the act of creation, discovered a reservoir of inner strength she had never known. The dream symbol became a living presence, guiding her healing far beyond the analyst's office. You might imagine now your own dreams. Have you ever awakened from one that left you calmer, reassured, or somehow lighter, even if its meaning was unclear? That is the unconscious at work, offering its medicine in symbolic form. Or perhaps you have been haunted by a nightmare, forced to face a fear you long avoided. That too may be the psyche urging you toward healing, demanding that you confront what festers in the shadows. Dreams do not always soothe. Sometimes they wound in order to heal, like a surgeon's incision that cuts only to repair. Jung's insight into the healing power of dreams carries a vital lesson. Therapy is not limited to the analyst's office. Each of us can participate in our own healing by attending to our dreams, journaling them, reflecting on them, and allowing their symbols to work upon us. The unconscious is not silent. It speaks nightly. It offers images, stories, and guides that can point us toward balance, if only we will listen. Healing through dream work is not about instant solutions. It is about relationship. Learning to live in dialogue with the unconscious, to honor its messages, and to integrate them into daily life. Over time, this relationship brings balance, resilience, and depth. It helps us recognize that the psyche itself longs for wholeness and will guide us toward it if we make space to hear. As Jung continued to explore this theme, he began to see that healing was not merely personal. Many dreams carried a numinous quality, as if the unconscious itself were guiding the dreamer with a spiritual compass, offering direction and meaning that went beyond therapy. Dreams, he discovered, do not only mend the broken pieces of the self, they also point the way forward, guiding the soul toward its destiny. It is to this guiding quality of dreams, their role as a spiritual compass, that we now turn. There are moments in life when the way forward seems clouded, when the ordinary compass of reason no longer suffices. In such times, Jung believed, dreams often step in as spiritual guides. They are not merely mirrors of our inner struggles, but compasses pointing toward paths we cannot yet see with waking eyes. These dreams arrive with clarity and force, carrying images so striking that they demand to be remembered. They are less about what has been and more about what could be. Jung often told the story of patients who, in the midst of crises, dreamed of symbols of orientation, maps, stars, or guiding figures. One woman, caught between the pull of duty and the desire for freedom, dreamed of standing at a crossroads. In the dream, a glowing compass floated above her hand, its needle unwavering as it pointed down a single road. She awoke with a sense of calm, knowing that the unconscious had affirmed her choice. For Jung, this was no coincidence. The dream was the psyche's way of guiding her toward her true direction. Dreams as compasses often present themselves in the form of archetypal imagery. A road through a forest, a bridge over rushing water, a light shining at the end of a tunnel. These are not just poetic images. They are the soul's way of saying, here is the path. The unconscious, Jung insisted, is not against us. It longs for wholeness. It nudges us forward, offering symbols to reassure, to warn, or to inspire. Sometimes these compass dreams come as warnings. Jung recounted instances where patients dreamed of looming disasters, urging caution or reconsideration. One man, restless in his ambition, dreamed of climbing a ladder so tall that it vanished into clouds. But as he climbed, the ladder shook violently, and he woke in terror. The dream was a clear warning. His drive for success, unchecked, would lead to collapse. By heeding the warning, he was able to step back, reconsider his choices, and avoid ruin. At other times, the compass comes in the form of reassurance. Dreams may reveal a guide, a wise figure, a teacher, a luminous child, who offers comfort when the conscious self is overcome by doubt. These figures often embody what Jung called the self, the archetype of wholeness and inner guidance. Their words or presence in dreams are like stars in the night sky, reminders that orientation is always possible, even in darkness. Think of your own life. Have you ever faced a decision so heavy that you could not see the way forward? Perhaps you dreamed of a road opening before you, or of a door glowing with light, or of a hand pointing the way. If so, Jung would say, your unconscious was speaking. It was offering you a compass when logic and reason could not. The dream does not force, it invites. But if you listen, its guidance can become the turning point of your journey. These compass dreams are not always literal. They do not dictate specific actions, but reveal the direction of the soul. The glowing compass does not tell you which career to choose, but it assures you that orientation is possible. The wise guide does not hand you a detailed map, but instills trust that the path exists. The bridge across the river does not tell you where the road leads, only that the crossing is necessary. Dreams speak symbolically, and to understand them, one must learn to see not with the eyes of reason, but with the eyes of imagination. Jung himself experienced such guiding dreams in his darkest times. During his midlife descent into visions, when his conscious world seemed to collapse, he dreamed of lights guiding him through stormy seas, of figures pointing towards safety, of voices reassuring him that his descent into the depths had meaning. These dreams became his compass, helping him endure years of inner turmoil until new insights emerged. Without them, he confessed, he might have been lost. To live with dreams as a compass is to walk in humility. It is to admit that the ego cannot always navigate the complexities of life alone. It is to recognize that within you lies a wisdom older than thought, one that speaks in images and stories. By attending to dreams, you place your hand upon that compass, allowing the unconscious to align you with your deeper path. And yet, these guiding dreams often carry imagery so rich, so overwhelming, that Jung felt compelled to capture them not only in journals but in art. He painted them, wrote them, and eventually gathered them into the work that would become his most mysterious and personal creation, the Red Book. In its pages, the compass of dreams became visions, and those visions transformed his life. It is to the Red Book, Jung's record of his own dream-inspired encounters with the unconscious, that we now turn to see how the images that guided him became a testimony to the transformative power of dreams. When Carl Jung entered the depths of his own unconscious during his midlife crisis, he felt as though he were being torn apart by visions. He did not resist them. Instead, he surrendered, choosing to record and engage them as if they were holy texts. The result was what we now know as the Red Book, a massive illuminated manuscript filled with images, dialogues, and dreamlike journeys that spanned years of his inner life. For Jung, it was not a book to be published. It was a living document of his descent into the unconscious and the visions that guided his rebirth. The Red Book is unlike anything else in psychology. Written by hand in ornate calligraphy, painted with vivid, surreal images, it looks more like a medieval manuscript than a scientific journal. On its pages, Jung recorded encounters with archetypal figures, landscapes of the psyche, and dialogues with inner voices. He painted serpents coiling through cosmic spheres, trees bursting into flames of transformation, and faces both terrifying and sublime. Every page reveals not only the depth of Jung's imagination, but the seriousness with which he treated the unconscious. For him, dreams and visions were not curiosities to be explained away. They were revelations, demanding attention and respect. One recurring image in the Red Book was the serpent, coiling and uncoiling as if carrying both death and renewal in its body. Jung saw in it the archetype of transformation, the eternal cycle of life shedding its skin. Another was the wise figure of Philemon, an inner guide who appeared to Jung in dreams and visions. Philemon was not simply a figment of imagination. To Jung, he was a living presence, an embodiment of the wisdom of the unconscious. Through dialogues with Philemon, Jung gained insights into the symbolic nature of dreams, the necessity of balance, and the reality of the archetypes. The book also recorded visions of apocalyptic floods, seas of blood, and cosmic destruction, dreams that Jung experienced in the years before World War I. At the time, he feared he was losing his mind. Later, when the war erupted, he realized these were not only personal nightmares, but collective visions, expressions of the turmoil rising from the depths of humanity's unconscious. The Red Book became, in part, a testimony to how big dreams can contain messages not only for the dreamer, but for the entire world. Reading the Red Book today, one senses its power to transform. It is not merely a diary of Jung's experiences, but a map of the soul's descent and return. Jung entered the darkness, confronted the archetypes, and allowed their symbols to shape him. He painted his way through chaos, letting images carry what words could not. The book shows how art itself can be a form of dream work, a way of giving form to what the unconscious reveals. By painting his dreams, Jung was not only recording them, he was integrating them, allowing their energy to move from the depths into conscious life. The visions in the Red Book illustrate Jung's conviction that dreams are not passive. They demand response. To dream of a serpent and ignore it is to miss the invitation to transformation. To dream of a wise figure and dismiss it is to lose the guidance offered by the unconscious. But to engage with these symbols, through writing, painting, reflection, is to enter into dialogue with the soul. Jung's work in the Red Book stands as an example of what it means to live with dreams, to take them seriously as messages from the deepest layers of the psyche. Imagine opening a great crimson book and seeing within it your own dreams painted in radiant color. Imagine confronting the archetypes that haunt and guide you, not as passing images, but as presences worthy of reverence. This is what Jung did. He treated his dreams not as illusions, but as sacred communications. By doing so, he transformed his suffering into wisdom, his despair into vision, and his isolation into a path that would inspire generations. For Jung, the Red Book was not meant for the world. He kept it private, hidden even from close colleagues, for decades. It was too personal, too raw, too sacred. Only long after his death was it published, revealing to the public the depth of his inner journey. To read it is to realize that Jung did not speak of dreams as an academic. He lived them. He allowed them to dismantle and rebuild him. This, then, is the heart of the Red Book. A living testimony to the transformative power of dreams when they are honored, engaged, and integrated. It is the written and painted record of a man who dared to descend into the unconscious and emerge renewed. It shows us that if we take our own dreams seriously, they too can become guides, companions, and sources of transformation. And yet, Jung never believed that his visions were unique to him. What he experienced, he insisted, was available to all. Each of us has an inner interpreter waiting to be awakened, a part of the psyche capable of hearing the symbols of dreams and translating them into guidance for life. In the final step of his teaching, Jung urged us to awaken this inner interpreter, to become readers of the language of dreams in our own lives. It is to this awakening, our own call to listen, reflect, and integrate, that we now turn. Jung believed that every person carries within them an inner interpreter, a faculty of the soul capable of hearing the language of dreams and translating their symbols into meaning for life. This interpreter is not a learned analyst or an external authority, but a voice already present in the psyche, waiting to be awakened. To ignore it is to let dreams slip away like mist in the morning sun. To awaken it is to step into dialogue with the unconscious, to become a participant in one's own transformation. The awakening of the inner interpreter begins with a simple act: paying attention. Dreams are easily dismissed because they often appear strange, fragmented, or irrational. Yet, Jung insisted, their irrationality is precisely the point. The unconscious speaks in images, not logic. To understand it requires patience, imagination, and humility. When we set aside the demand for immediate clarity and instead listen to the dream on its own terms, we invite the inner interpreter to stir. Journaling, for Jung, was the first step. By writing dreams down, even fragments, we honor their existence. This act alone begins to strengthen the inner interpreter. Over time, as we revisit our journals, patterns emerge: recurring symbols, familiar places, archetypal figures. The interpreter within begins to recognize the language. What once seemed bizarre now feels familiar, meaningful, even necessary. The next step is reflection. Jung advised not to rush to definitive interpretations, but to ask questions. Why did the serpent appear again? What is the house revealing this time? What emotion did the ocean carry? Reflection awakens imagination, allowing symbols to breathe. It keeps the dream alive within us, giving the inner interpreter space to work. Active imagination was another practice Jung recommended. In this method, the dreamer re-enters the dream in waking life, allowing the images to continue unfolding. A dream of a wise old man, for example, might be carried into meditation, where the dreamer imagines speaking with him, asking questions, listening to his answers. Through such dialogues, the inner interpreter learns to treat dream figures not as illusions, but as living presences within the psyche, each carrying wisdom and guidance. The inner interpreter is also awakened by recognizing archetypes. When you realize that the dark figure in your dream is not just a personal fear, but the universal shadow, something shifts. You begin to understand that your dream is part of a much larger story, one shared by humanity. This recognition strengthens the interpreter, giving it context and depth. Dreams no longer feel like isolated puzzles, but as threads woven into the fabric of the collective unconscious. To awaken the interpreter is to live differently. It is to walk through life aware that every night, the unconscious offers guidance. It is to wake each morning with curiosity, to ask, what message has my soul given me today? It is to treat dreams not as entertainment or nonsense, but as sacred dialogues. Each symbol a key, each image a door. Jung insisted that the unconscious longs for dialogue. It does not send dreams to confuse us, but to guide us. Yet it will not shout over the noise of the ego. It speaks softly in images, requiring us to slow down, to listen, to interpret. The more we listen, the more the interpreter awakens. And once it does, life itself begins to feel different. Even waking events take on symbolic weight: a conversation, a chance encounter, a sudden image. All are seen through the eyes of the interpreter, as messages woven into the tapestry of the soul. Perhaps you can sense this now. Imagine waking from a dream of standing before a mirror. You look into the glass, but instead of your reflection, you see the sky filled with symbols, a serpent coiling upward, a house glowing in the distance, an ocean stretching endlessly, a shadow figure standing at the edge. The dream is telling you, yourself is larger than you think. Your life is part of a myth. The interpreter within you is the one who can hear this truth, the one who can weave it into meaning for your journey. Jung's final message about dreams was not simply to study them, but to live with them, to let them guide choices, to allow their wisdom to shape relationships, to permit their symbols to transform the way we see ourselves and the world. Dreams, when honored, do not just inform us, they change us. They awaken the soul's capacity for dialogue with itself. They help us walk the path of individuation, the journey of becoming whole. Thus, to awaken the inner interpreter is to take responsibility for your own growth. No analyst, not even Jung himself, could do it for you. The work belongs to each dreamer, each seeker. By attending to your dreams, by writing, reflecting, imagining, and honoring, you become the interpreter of your own unconscious. And in doing so, you take your place in the great conversation of humanity, where every soul listens, learns, and speaks through the language of dreams. As this journey draws to a close, remember, Jung did not see dreams as trivial. He saw them as the most intimate voice of the unconscious, the hidden scripture of the psyche. They are invitations to transformation, to healing, and to wholeness. The inner interpreter is your key to this language. Awaken it, and the path of individuation, the path of becoming fully yourself, will unfold before you. And now, having walked through Jung's vision of dreams, from symbols to archetypes, from personal whispers to collective revelations, from healing light to guiding compasses, we arrive at the threshold of conclusion. It is time to gather the threads, to reflect on the essence of Jung's teaching, and to offer an invitation for your own nightly journey into the secret language of the soul. With Carl Jung, dreams cease to be trivial shadows of daily life. They become sacred messages, the secret language of the soul, carrying wisdom that bridges the fragile ego with the timeless depths of the unconscious. Through them, we encounter our fears and our potential, our wounds and our healing, our personal story and the myth of all humanity. For Jung, dreams are not random flickers of the brain, but the voice of the self, the center of wholeness, calling us toward individuation, toward becoming who we truly are. The lesson woven through Jung's life and work is simple but profound. Your dreams matter. They are not to be dismissed, laughed away, or left to fade in the morning light. They are a dialogue between you and the deepest layers of existence, a nightly exchange in which the unconscious offers images, symbols, and guides. If you ignore them, you walk past treasures buried in plain sight. If you attend to them, you open the door to healing, guidance, and transformation. Begin with a humble act. Place a notebook by your bed. Each morning, record whatever fragments remain: an image, a word, a place, a feeling. Do not worry if they make no sense. Trust that over time, patterns will emerge. Trust that symbols will speak. Write them down, and you will discover that the unconscious rewards attention with clarity. Slowly, your inner interpreter will awaken, and you will learn to read the metaphors of the soul. At first, the dreams may seem ordinary: houses, conversations, stray animals. Yet within them lie archetypes, the shadow waiting for recognition, the anima or animus inviting balance, the wise old man offering counsel. Even small dreams carry threads of transformation, nudging you toward wholeness. And then, sometimes, a great dream will arrive, so luminous, so unforgettable, that it alters the course of your life. When it does, treat it as sacred. Sit with it, honor it, and let it guide you. Jung himself lived this practice. He journaled, painted, dialogued with his inner figures, and gave his visions the dignity of attention. From this discipline came his greatest insights: archetypes, the collective unconscious, and the very map of individuation. His legacy teaches us that dreams are not to be dissected with cold detachment, but engaged with reverence. They are living symbols, bridges between the seen and unseen. As you hear this, remember, the unconscious is not against you. It seeks balance. It seeks healing. It seeks to guide you into becoming whole. It will not shout, but it will whisper every night. All it asks is that you listen. So tonight, when sleep takes you, imagine stepping into a vast temple built of images. Walk through its halls, knowing that each symbol you meet is a message meant only for you. Carry them back at dawn, write them down, and let them shape your path. For the deepest truths of your life may not come from the noise of the world, but from the silence of your dreams. Because sometimes, the most profound message of your soul does not arrive in daylight, through logic or reason. Sometimes, it arrives when your eyes are closed, when the world is hushed, when the unconscious finally speaks. That is when you hear the timeless truth. You are more than you know, and your dreams are the map to who you are becoming.